Hi, and welcome to African Politics, a show where we discuss issues concerning the citizens of the different countries from here in Kenya to West Africa to the southern part of Africa and generally the world as a whole. Of course, today on the show, I'm not alone. I have with me one person who's very patriotic and a very active citizen by all means, and that's none other than Fanya Mambo. I'll let him introduce himself for 30 seconds, then we can pick it up from there.
A very good morning to you. My name is Fanya Mambo. I'm a lawyer and a believer in good governance and good leadership. And that's what we've been fighting for throughout.
You've been fighting for?
Yes.
Very good place to start. Now, today across Kenya, people have been saying occupy parliament. And generally today, as we talk about the role of citizens in good governance, which you stated, I want us to start there. Why is this Occupy Parliament important to us, and why should we be bothered as citizens?
You see, number one, I was telling people that there is a finance bill. And this is what I have always called a very draconian finance bill. We've never had such a horrible finance bill. From the provisions of increasing the cost of bread to the provisions of trying to increase the cost of cooking oil, diapers for our children, cancer treatment. I mean, you think of it, these are diabolical crimes against the people of Kenya because you cannot have such a finance bill because when it passes, the results will be catastrophic for this nation. It is too expensive. It is too much taxation. The mere raid on the salaries of people, someone earning 50,000 will go home with less money than what the government will take from their salary. And we keep saying, then it's fine. The government can take the salary, let the Kenyans take the taxes. So this draconian finance bill, Kenyans have read it. Kenyans have heard us talk about it. Kenyans have decided to be proactive. They downloaded it from the parliamentary website. They looked at specific things that were affecting them and they decided this is not good for us. And that's why Kenyans are saying we are going to occupy parliament because parliament is now appearing not to represent the interests of the people. You remember there are some MPs who've gone on record and said, my allegiance is to the president, not to the people who voted for me. And
so
it's supposed to be the
where
other way
should
around.
the allegiance for the citizens be?
You see, for us as citizens, remember Article 1 of the Constitution tells us very clearly that all sovereign power belongs to the people.
And what does that mean?
What we have done is we've just delegated it to parliamentarians to exercise it on our behalf. But when they get to the point where we'll see them as if they are serving other interests other than our own, then we go and have our own parliament outside parliament. And we said we have read the bill, we have taken it through the first reading, second reading, and third reading of the citizens, and we've decided it is bad. And
so now when you go occupy parliament, what's the end goal and what achievements will come from it?
As we speak right now, already the Kenya Kwanza administration is having conversations on trying to expunge from the bill some of those things that Kenyans are talking about. Already they are saying they are going to remove the tax on bread. Already they are saying they are going to remove the tax on cooking oil. Already they are saying they are going to remove the motor vehicle circulation tax. It tells you they are listening and they are hearing. And I thank God for the Kenyans who share the numbers of these members of parliament because they got thousands of messages on their phones telling them that this is what Kenyans want. So in as much as they are going to debate that thing in parliament today, the heat is real. They are feeling it on their phones. Some have had to change their numbers, by the way. You get 40,000 messages you can't handle. So, and this is the kind of pressure we wanted, for them to know that this money is coming from us and we don't have it. So don't push us to a place where we feel like we are not citizens in this country anymore.
You know, we've been, that's generally talking about the sovereign power of the people. Does this sovereign power then protect people whereby then we can get to a point where you can share numbers of people? Is that a way of the sovereignty, or how do we deal with that in a manner that...
Number one, your number is not a very private number. You are elected by the people. When these people were campaigning, they were sharing their numbers freely, let me tell you. Oh, you can call me anytime. Because they were looking for groups. They wanted to know where there is a burial. They wanted to know where there is a harambe. They wanted to know where there is a gathering. Kenyans were calling them freely and they were being available during campaigns. So now, when they were campaigning, they were telling people, share my number, tell people to call me, I'll be available. And they were coming, and they would sit with us and drink soup in the most dingy space within the constituency. And then after they are elected, it becomes criminal for us to have their numbers and to share their numbers. No, they gave their numbers to us, and we gave the numbers to all the constituents, and we are happy they are feeling the heat.
So now, then how do we, looking at it from now a larger perspective, this is just one of the instances where we are having this Zakayo Shuka movement thing. Moving forward, or even futuristic, then how do citizens become responsible, and how do they, take accountability of how they are governed?
To start with, the quality of leadership in 2027 will be very different. People have discovered that they made certain mistakes. You see, every day we are dealing with symptoms of bad governance. You come today, it's a finance bill. The other day, they have done something careless with teachers. The other day, doctors are on strike for 60 days and so on and so forth. So those are just symptoms of bad governance. And what will happen moving forward is that Kenyans will fix bad governance. Because every day you'll be dealing with problems. So the main problem is the governance itself, the people themselves who are in power. And Kenyans must get to the point where they start saying, we are not voting for this member of parliament again. We are not voting for this MCA again. We are not voting for this particular governor again. And to replace them now with people who will inspire hope in them. I keep saying there's a time when an administration would wake up and come up with something nice. All school buses are yellow. The next thing you hear, we are manning exams from containers, and exam stealing becomes an issue of the past. With this particular administration, we're only hearing horrible ideas every other minute. And every time you try, is there something good you have in your mind you can tell Kenyans, you can do for Kenyans? There's none. And sometimes I sit here, I even call the assistant government spokesman, he's my friend, and I ask him, Mr. Mutuma, my friend, tell me something good about this administration that I can go on media and say, they have done this. I am yet to receive anything from them.
But let me question you right there. These people never got themselves in parliament. Nobody elects themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So then have citizens failed? Or are we just pointing fingers?
There is a member of parliament called Peter Salasia who said that he has received 40,000 shillings from Kenyans. And people are just sending 1 shilling just to confirm that it is number before they can send a message. So you can receive 1 shilling 40,000 times. And then people told him, if you dare pass that bill, don't step in this constituency. He has felt the heat. He has said, I as Peter Salasia will vote against this bill. Not because of anything else, but because 40,000 people have sent me 1 shilling each. And they were trying to confirm that it's my number, and they've sent me messages and they've sent me WhatsApp. So now it's a case of citizens putting their leaders to task and telling them, this is why we voted for you and this is what we want as citizens. It's a very beautiful moment to be alive in Kenya.
Do you think this is just engineered by one piece, that now every time politics, because we talk, those things are spoken every now and then when it comes to political season, somehow we go back to our cocoons. Something else I would want to understand, the church. What's the role of the church in all this? Because they say Kenya is 80% Christian or something.
I think I'll start by answering the question on the church. And the first thing is to say, shame on every bishop who has allowed his pulpit to be turned into a political podium. I usually ask them, ask yourself as a bishop or a pastor, when was the last time you spoke in parliament? Would they give you an opportunity as a bishop? Would they give you an opportunity as a pastor to go before parliament and speak in parliament? So you should be ashamed of yourself that they come and speak at your pulpit and they are not bishops and they are not pastors.
Maybe the law won't allow them.
No, the thing is, if the law doesn't allow you to go and speak in parliament, why are you allowing politicians to come and speak at the altar and to desecrate the altars? Half of the problems we have in this country, especially this season, have been caused by bishops and pastors of particular churches that I don't even want to name here. I'll give them free mileage and they're not paying for it. But those are the people we want to address and to tell them now, if you're the kind of bishop, if you're the kind of pastor who's been allowing politics to be played at your pulpit, shame on you. And congratulations to those mainstream churches that have disallowed that. Those mainstream churches that have said, go and do politics elsewhere, not on the altar. Because that kind of, in church people are very gullible. People believe so many things. People come there with a softened heart. And so they tend to think that if our spiritual leader allows so and so to speak here, what that person is saying is the right thing for this country. The church has told us that this is a God-given president. What in that finance bill looks to you like a God-given thing? Nothing there. So our bishops should be thoroughly ashamed of themselves, and they should stop that bad manners of allowing politics to be played at the pulpit.
I'll go back. What is the role of the citizens? Because again, the church is made up of citizens. Then do you want to tell me it's just the bishop who comes and says, fine, Fanya Mambo, come speak? There are citizens in that church.
I have always told people I hold the highest office in this country. And that's the office of a citizen. There is no higher office. When you're a citizen, you can comment even about the color of the sky. Nobody will ask you questions. You can even come and say, I don't like blue gum trees. That is the highest office you can hold in any land, the office of a citizen. And it's a beautiful office to hold. So from where I sit, first I want to tell Kenyans, there is nothing wrong with being a citizen. And never sit and say, I am a mere citizen. I want you to start saying, I hold the highest office in this land. And it is the office of a citizen. Because the citizen employs every other politician. Now, having realized your position, then the next thing to do is to say, from my own little space, what can I do? Thank you to every young person who did a short video on TikTok. Every young person who posted something on their Instagram, on their X, on their Facebook page, on whatever social media platform. Because that is what has contributed to the amount of awareness we have. By the way, for a very long time, Kenyans never knew there was a difference between finance bill and the budget. We used to think it was the same thing. Right now, you are seeing a young person, 23-year-old, explaining to you the contents of the finance bill, and you are like, wow, this is what we are looking for. Before people tell you you're a busybody speaking on TV and speaking online, please speak. Because when you speak, you create awareness and you win people towards a noble cause. And when you win them towards a noble cause, you have more soldiers fighting with you as opposed to being the only person who knows. So citizens, thank you. And I will tell you, don't stop. Even after today, because today they're just going to read it and introduce it into Parliament. It will have time because it will go into first reading, second reading, and so on. Please, don't stop lending your voice to this maneno. And where we make small achievements, if today they reduce the cost of bread, if they reduce the cost of diapers, let us celebrate those achievements, let us air them, because then it encourages people to say, oh, the noise we are making has won us this. How much more shall we win if we continue making more noise? So do not give up as a citizen.
So now that we've already gone to the young people and how active they've become in terms of the political space, previously people used to do those mass general demonstrations, and we saw it in 1992 in Kenya, we saw it in 97 and across the years. Now the game has changed. How do we then push this thing from just online activism? I'm not saying that online activism is not changing. I mean, we're seeing changes here and there. But then how do we actualize it such that it's not just noise online, but in terms of it reflects in terms of what we want?
Number one, as I said, you saw people reaching out to MPs on their phones. That was beautiful. You saw people going on the streets, taking a camera and saying, we are in Nyeri and we are telling our MPs in this area not to pass the finance bill. We saw a stage border people, each of them had a placard. You know, people think that you have to go to Parliament. From where you work, if you're on the street, if you're parked 10 borders on the street and each of them raises a placard saying, we resist that finance bill, the local MCA will see. The member of parliament will see, and they will know the people I represent are not happy about this. So I tell people, if you live in Embu, if you live in Kisumu, you don't have to come to parliament. You can find a place, even your area MP's office, and walk with a placard, all of you, and say we have a right to picket, and we are peaceful, and we are unarmed, we don't have any weapons on us. Probably even wear white t-shirts, just go. Camp at the area MP's office and say we are sitting here the whole day and we are 200, 300, 500 of us, and the message is do not pass that finance bill. So there are many ways to mount pressure on these people, and I tell people you can even go to the chief's office and sit at the chief's office, all of you, and tell them we've not come to protest, we just sit here. You see 1,000 people seated outside your office as a chief and telling you we are here because we don't want the finance bill to pass. So people think that protest and going on the streets is throwing stones and exchanging tear gas. You literally can sit at the DC's office, and every time he sees 1,000 people outside and they are not making any commotion, he feels uncomfortable and calls the government and says, wait a minute, there are 1,000 people saying here they are not with you.
So the goal is make the government listen to you, even as young people on Twitter keep pushing the
Whatever
hashtags.
space you have, I told people, if you have a Twitter, if you are good on TikTok, if you have 30 followers, not many, 30, and you're able to convince those 30 that this is not going on well, and pick a specific thing that you feel for you. Like now, there are content creators on social media, and there's that tax that is coming for content creators. Make that your running call and say, I don't like the finance bill because of this particular tax against content creators. You've seen farmers now, they have a problem with KRA coming to count your goats and your chicken and your cows. I mean, if you're a group of farmers, go to the local DO, go to the local DC, go to the local chief and say, we are here, and this specific provision we have a problem with as farmers. And so it begins to make sense, because people are talking of what is biting them in the finance bill, and that is how it will bring down the whole noise. And for you to know that it is effective, never has it occurred in the history of this country that when the nation is about to pass the finance bill, the president himself calls for a PG at State House on the morning that they're supposed to take it. Why do you think they are being whipped? Silvana Sosoro is the deputy chief whip or the whip or whatever, is calling the UDA affiliated MPs and telling them how the party is going to vote. Why? Because they are feeling the heat. Yeah.
I would also want to look at it now from a more continental view. We've seen countries in West Africa, we've seen Burkina Faso, we've seen Mali, Niger, and we saw it in Tunisia that it got to a point where young people were so tired that they went to the streets. In West Africa, it's the coups that have taken place. Then is that another direction, or is that a thing that people could look at? And how good is it for any country?
I have always said civil unrest is not one of the best ways to resolve issues, especially in a democratic country. What we are doing is working, believe you me. Sometimes we don't even have to go to the streets. If MPs can sleep and wake up in the morning and find 200 constituents at their door, telling them, we are just telling you, go to parliament and do what we want, eventually the will of the people will carry the day. So what we need to do is, instead of paralyzing business, because if we make this a demonstration country, what will happen, even those people who are opening their little shops to sell a few mandazis so that they are able to provide for their family will go hungry. And we don't want to create that. I say it is possible to mount pressure on government in a way that doesn't affect the businesses of those people who must. You know, there are people who, for them to eat today, they have to open their shop. I have to sell 7 bananas for me to fix a meal for today. And there are certain people who are like that. So we don't want, and I wouldn't encourage, that we create a country where everybody is on the streets. But let's find ways to give these people so much pressure that they are not even seeing us on the streets, but they can feel us, and they know that we are disillusioned with them, and they will do what we want them to do.
Is it an African issue that we're having bad governance? Because again, in a country like Senegal, before Diomaye came in, Macky Sall, who was the former president, he really wanted to run for another term, or his guy to run for another term, but the citizens were not okay with it. And he put to prison the Sonko and Diomaye because he didn't want these guys to get in. But then these guys were calling people to not civil unrest, but not to show up to work, and people actually refused to show up to work as a way of demonstration or just speaking to government. So are these things that affect Africa generally, or is it a thing that in this generation is just going across?
To start with, there was this African perception that presidents were supposed to be king and therefore untouchable and therefore up there. Gradually, and we are changing that, because now we are showing them that you are our servants and you work for us and you're supposed to do what we want you to do. And it's been an African problem, because also we were prone to electing the person who comes with money or the person who has got a particular influence. And I'm glad that Kenyans are getting to the point where they are now starting to look for content. They're starting to look for a leader who has a brain and a leader who has got a sense of direction. So I would say it's been an African problem, but as you can see gradually in the whole continent, things are beginning to shape up. I mean, Kenya, who would have thought that people would tell the president the kind of things they tell him on social media? Some of them might even look and say, hey, this is too bold. I think this has gone too far. But yes, it shows that Africa has gotten to a point where now the people know what is right for them and what is due to them, and they are asking for it fearlessly.
So is it, again, looking at it, most of the African countries were basically colonized by the Western nations. What is the role of the colonizers in how then people look at how leadership is?
As we speak right now, there has been a lot of debate about the finance bill and people saying there is an imperial hand to it, and even saying that this must have been drafted by some people outside of this country so that they can see how they can give us very expensive loans and then make us to pay through an expensive finance bill. But from where I sit, I have always said, look at Senegal now. They have severed links with their colonial masters. They have started reducing tax burdens on people. In fact, I was surprised to see that when our president is adding taxation on the people, in Senegal they are doing the reverse. They are trying to make life easier for the citizens. So I think we are in a good place, and I think we are heading to the good place, but we have to keep fighting. It's a vigilant thing, and to keep knowing that if they try to silence one of us, we all wake up. Because if they come and silence you and we say, it's not me, then they go to him, By the time we are getting to know, when they come to me, there'll be nobody to fight with me. So if they touch any of our own, we all come up and we all say, no, we are fighting for our children. Yeah.
The question of, again, colonization and the effects on leadership, I would want to know the impact it had on the kind of leaders that we elect as Africans generally across.
To start with, even when elections happen, we know there's usually an imperial hand. Always the countries that are outside of our borders, and I mean the imperial powers, the G7 and all, they always have a preferred candidate. And woe unto us most of the time if their preferred candidate becomes president, because then he stops serving our interest. I know we shall be getting to international politics, but you have seen what is happening when you hear a president going to take sides on international matters, and simply because that president is working with one side of the political divide in international matters. And those are the things we are saying now, that we need to start electing leaders also who are self-emancipated, leaders who will not lean to any other interest other than the interest of Kenyans.
So when a leader takes a role or a certain point of view, when, for instance, our president recently was in the Ukraine peace conference and the G7 also, and he took sides with, rather he condemned Russia, saying they were the aggressors, and then again says that Ukraine needs to be redeemed and that we need to stand with Ukraine for these things. When such things happen, what is the role of citizens against such? Because he's a representative of the 50 million of us out there.
First and foremost, we as Kenyans do not agree with that statement, and we have made it very clear. Kenya trades with Russia to the tune of about $81 million or thereabout, and with Ukraine to the tune of about 7 point something million dollars. For us as a country to start with, we need the trade we have with Russia. By the way, they gave us free fertilizer. Yes. We need the trade we have with Ukraine. And some of these aircraft you've been seeing people displaying here on Madaraka Day and Jamhuri Day, I think it was meant for spraying pesticides. Those are not the kind of aircraft that will make you start exchanging words with Russia. These things will be switched off like insects in the air. Russia, when you think about the military might of Russia and the military might of some of those countries, Kenya should not go anywhere close to having a conversation about Russia's foreign policy and how they decide to use their weapons. or Ukraine for that matter. Because when you start engaging, what if they threatened to attack and then you go to Nanyuki, you start removing those things we see here, turning on Madaraka Day, and then you go online, you look at some of the aircraft that these people have. Those are places we don't want to step as a country. What we would like to say as a nation is that Russia is an independent nation. Ukraine is an independent nation. The decisions they make about one another, those are their own decisions. The only position we can take as a country is a humanitarian position, where we come and say we stand with displaced families wherever they are in the two countries. If we have refugees in those countries and if there's a way they can be helped, we can talk about that. But we are not here to condemn Russia. We are not here to condemn Ukraine. That is none of our business. And it is wrong for us to take a diplomatic stand of that kind, because as a nation we stand to lose. We just got free fertilizer from them and then we mixed with gravel and it became something else that is close to rubbish. It can be used for affordable housing. We cannot allow ourselves to go that direction anymore. In fact, we should be apologizing to Russia as a nation. And by the way, this is the president who woke up one morning, went to Isli, and found some traders and told them, from now on, I have decided, by the way, he's on record, you can build up to 25 floors. You can build up to 30. In fact, he started by saying, I am the commander-in-chief. Exactly 2 months later, he goes back to Isli, and we have the 60th anniversary to celebrate the, what do you call it? The
Kenya Air Force.
The Air Force.
60. And
they were talking about the Isli, the air base. Moi Forces, the Moi Air Base in Isli. And he comes and says, what is disturbing this airport is the people who are building buildings that are above 12 floors. So we are going to work on how to bring down those buildings. Mind you, when he told the traders that they can build buildings up to 30 floors, I know men and women who went and spent millions of money at City Hall to get approvals for buildings. They secured contractors. They were ready to start building 30 floors on the flight path, only for the president to come 30 days, 60 days later and tell the airport, I assure you, I am standing here. Nobody will build. I think the president does not consult with himself.
I just want to know sometimes, because we've had such instances, and my focus is actually the role of citizen when the president speaks in such matters, and maybe even on international matters that citizens maybe don't agree with.
There's something they did. And I like TikTok, and I like what is happening on. They made a photo of the president and said the person appearing on this photo does not represent us on some international matters and so on and so forth. And they told even World Bank, because that's the least you can do from your phone. They were even sharing on the pages of World Bank and on their social media sites and telling them that this person is not even allowed to borrow on our behalf. So citizens are proactive. It's just that sometimes, as I said, you can't go to the streets. Maybe World Bank will not even hear you. But if you go to the official page and send something of that kind, that as Kenyans we don't agree with his position on Russia, they tend to now start seeing us differently. So I've told Kenyans, from wherever you are, use your creativity. There is something you can do to create awareness. There's something you can do to show that there are certain decisions you don't agree with from government. And if that thing is just making a poster that passes the message, and people are excited and they are sharing on all their status, and it gets to these leaders, they say, wait, we made a mistake. Citizens are excited and this is what they are doing. Yeah.
Wow. And as citizens get excited, back home, we still have an issue with the citizens who actually look at leaders as the alpha and omega in this case. We've seen clips of one of the MPs, current sitting MP, donating money to churches and giving bishops cars, and they are very happy about it. And nobody questions where this money is coming from, because you can't tell me the salary of an MP can have him donate 2 million every Sunday and we are comfortable about it as citizens.
Number one, the recipients don't complain, I must say. But you keep asking Kenyans, before the elections of August 2022, that specific member of parliament who is wearing white trousers, I think nowadays white trousers are a mark of arrival. They call him engineer. He's been moving around, and last weekend alone he donated 20 million in one function. It's on record. An MP doesn't earn anything more than $1.5 million at most. How did you manage to be able to donate 3 million this weekend, 20 million the following weekend, and so on and so forth? These are the questions we need to ask. And then once we ask these questions, we start saying, we are not going to allow to see our money being spent this way. And by the way, the vehicles these people are using now, I have just seen a 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser Prado. 2024. They have them on the roads. In this economy, in this current state of the roads, why would one person have such a vehicle? It's actually unbelievable that somebody would buy a car worth 32 million, 33 million, 40 million. And before they became a leader, they couldn't afford a motorbike. So it is wrong. And as citizens, we have to keep calling them and telling them the truth and sharing their videos on social media and making them and painting them for who they are. Because that is what is bringing shame. They had gotten to the point where they would come to a meeting and they would do this so that you can see they have a wristwatch worth 10 million shillings. And then people made noise about it and they stopped wearing those watches and belts worth 400,000-500,000. So when Kenyans do that, it makes them start feeling the need to be measured in their opulence and in their extravagance, and also find ways to close the taps from where they're stealing.
And as we come to the conclusion of this conversation, I still want to understand the role of citizens, because we do so much, like you're saying, we have the social activism online, which I actually feel is a good thing for citizens personally, because when I see some injustice happening, I'll share about it. The question is, when now they go to, let's say an MP comes here with the 32 million worth car, we are so many as citizens, let's say in Meru, in Bungoma, wherever, excited about seeing that person instead of then holding them accountable. How do we break that barrier besides especially in the far off, because Nairobi is where mostly people are doing the social activism online, and across other counties, of course. But then when the person comes in person with their big machines, then we go quiet.
I think everything is a campaign. I started by describing who is a public enemy the other day, and it really trended. You know, anybody who campaigns for this bill, anybody who doesn't campaign it, anybody who votes for it, anybody who celebrates when it passes, or anybody who does not cry because it passed. You know, we described who a public enemy is, and people wrote down 7 or 8 points. This is what a public enemy is. So after the finance bill, because right now we don't want to lose focus, the next thing now we are moving is to that issue of public display of opulence. And we will start saying, mukiona mtu, if you see someone with a car that looks like this, no, it is worth 32 million. Let us make noise about it. We shall make them so uncomfortable, they'll be coming to the constituencies in a Toyota Fielder. That's what we are going to do. We will make sure that they will not enjoy those cars. And what we are going to do is we will start a new campaign of saying that anybody who is seen with a vehicle worth more than 20 million, and we shall do a list of those vehicles, is a public thief. And they need to explain. Nada, if they come to the constituency, put them to task to explain. If we start that campaign, but it usually starts small, you will see. They'll get to a place where everybody will start sharing number plates of those cars. This one belongs to so. They'll get to a place they can't even feel comfortable driving those cars. The same way we did with messages, we will make sure that all their cars are known. Any fuel guzzlers, anything, LX6, why are you doing with that 6,000cc car? Most 6,000cc cars here are public service vehicles. City Hopper, they carry 50 people. Why are you carrying 5 people in one car, 6,000cc? We're not going to allow that. Because also, remember, we pay for their mileage allowance. So the bigger the car they get, and that's the campaign now we shall run in Parliament and say, for all of us as citizens, the next level we are taking is anybody who comes with a car more than 2,000cc as a parliamentarian shall not receive fuel allowance from the public coffers. So now the fuel allowance is for anybody who drives a 2,000cc car and below. And if we do that, then you will see the big change that will happen.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Finally, I want you to, I know today is a big day for Kenyans as the finance bill is voted in, or yes or no, depending on where the MP stand. I would want you to share your take to the citizens and your conclusive remarks.
Mine is to tell every other person out there that for the first time we have a demonstration called by citizens themselves. This is not the kind of maandamano that used to be called by Raila Amolo Odinga or any of those politicians. Kenyans who feel the pinch, and especially middle-class Kenyans, have decided that they are taking to the streets on their own volition. I have seen media photos. The police have already sent our lorry there with our water. It's our taxes anyway. They've sent our own brothers and sisters who are suffering within the police force because even their salaries are very meager to come and beat us up. Who beats their customers, by the way? Why are you beating your own customers? So we will be there because it's our democratic right. In fact, after this, you see I'm in a black t-shirt. I just remove this. I'm going to Parliament. And we will tell them to their face. And I tell people, and as I finish, you know, there are two levels of fear. The first level of fear is what we call basic fear. You call alarm, panic. So right now, what Kenyans have is we are alarmed. We are panicking that the boys in blue will come and beat us up and break our hands and incinerate us and spray us with tear gas, maybe even bullets. And if they manage to kill us, then send that funny spokesman of theirs who said that we hired bodies and therefore none of us was killed. So that is the level of fear that people have today. But Kenyans, allow me to introduce you to the next level of fear. And the next level of fear is what will happen to you. And this is what you should be afraid of. If you think that being afraid of the police, which we are right now, is a bad thing, I want you to know that there will be another deeper level, which is called trepidation, the one that makes you urinate on yourself. The kind of fear that is called terror, the kind of fear that is called horror. Why am I saying it's a terror? When you can't buy diapers for your child because finance bill passed. When you can't afford bread for your children because finance bill passed. That's a government that is tantamount to terrorists. When you can't, like now they are saying that if you give birth in these shift regulations, if you give birth within 48 hours, you need to leave the hospital. Why are you leaving the hospital if you've not recovered as a mother? To go die because government doesn't want to pay money? So now this becomes now from the terror part now to horror, because we shall be having horror movies of people leaving the hospitals bleeding. You're being told that within 72 hours, you'll need to have left the hospital if you had a C-section. That's a horror movie. So the level of fear, we need to choose the fear we want. And the fear we prefer now is this one of we are alarmed, we are afraid because of the police. It's a better level of fear, we deal with it now, than the fear that will come in the lives of Kenya, because people will commit suicide. Can you imagine as a man you wake up, bread is out of your reach. Okay, you can't buy diapers for your child. If you are earning 50,000, the government takes 21,000, you're left with 29,000. I'm telling you, if finance bill goes through, the amount of money that you need to treat cancer. Can you imagine VAT on cancer treatment, 16% more? If we allow this finance bill to go through, what that means for the ordinary Kenyan is that now we shall move to that level I'm calling horror movies. Because men will just commit suicide. You can't buy diapers for your child. You can't pay rent. You can't afford food. You can't afford bread. They want to add 150 shillings per liter of cooking oil. You know what that means? You can't afford mandazi on the streets. It's that simple. You can't afford chapati. People think finance bill is something we hate because we hate. The truth is, this thing is horrible. And so we are not going to allow ourselves to sink to that lower level. We will fight it now. It's better to deal with tear gas today than to deal with suicide of men after the finance bill is gone through. So we are okay with this fear, this panic for today. We are panicking, there will be tear gas. That's okay. As opposed to a situation where every individual will sit in their home and say, I just can't provide for my family. And we are not going to allow you to get there. So It's a fight we are passionate about. And we mean well for. I'm okay with you making my life horrible as government. But when you get to the level where you make it horrible for my children, today Kenyans are taking their children to study in Uganda, if you don't know. University fees are at an all-time high. This is the first time when you get a school fees, and I challenge any person who is watching me today, go to any university today, get the prospectus for 2022, 2021, and get the one for 2023. Fees that used to be somewhere close to 40,000, 50,000 per semester is 113,000 today. So what are people doing? Taking their children to study in Kampala, taking their children to study in Tanzania. And that's why for me, when you threaten the future of my child, I will leave the comforts of my house, I'll put on a black t-shirt, I'll occupy Parliament.
Go occupy parliament today. And even if you're watching, please go occupy parliament. It's very important for you. And I think, Fanya Mambo, that's a nice place to end it, since time does not allow us to go on and on. It allows us to go and fight for our rights out there. So thank you so much for everyone who's been watching. I hope you enjoyed our first and premiere episode of African Politics, and we hope to catch you on the next episode. Remember to subscribe, like, and share our content across all your networks. See you.